Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing something pretty cool. We are decoding the secret, life-saving visual language painted right onto Norwegian roads. Whether you're prepping to pass your Statens Vegvesen theory exam, or you're just fascinated by the clever ways infrastructure guides human behavior, you are in the exact right place. We're going to learn how to literally read the asphalt. We'll uncover how the specific length, color, and spacing of road lines are constantly whispering crucial information to help you drive safely.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the language of the road, then cracking the color code, reading the math ratios, spotting the warning line alert, handling special lanes and merging, and finally acing that theory test. Let's dive right in.
Section 1. The language of the road. Decoding the basics. You know, it's so easy to just zone out and treat these lines as background scenery, right? But they're actually a highly engineered communication system. They're constantly whispering crucial information to you about what's ahead if only you know how to listen. The absolute foundational rule to grasp here is the stark difference between solid and broken lines. Think of a solid line as a strict, invisible brick wall. It's a strict prohibition, you just do not cross it. Broken lines, on the other hand, are an invitation, or rather a conditional permission. Unlike solid lines that act as a strict wall, broken lines indicate you have legal permission to cross, provided traffic conditions allow it, and it doesn't endanger anyone else. But as we're going to see, not all broken lines are created equal.
Moving on to Section 2, cracking the color code and setting your baseline.
What's really fascinating here is how a simple splash of color instantly sets your absolute baseline for survival. Norway uses this brilliant high-contrast color coding system. A yellow line means you are facing oncoming traffic. You're looking at the center of a two-way road. White, however, means everyone around you, on either side of that line, is flowing in the exact same direction. Recognizing this immediately tells you whether a lane change carries the risk of a head-on collision or just a sideswipe. But we have to be incredibly careful here. Because of Norway's spectacular but sometimes dangerous topography, with sharp curves, deep fjords, and steep inclines, a broken yellow line does not magically guarantee it's safe to pass. It simply indicates that there isn't a legal solid line prohibition stopping you at that specific point. You still absolutely need a crystal clear view of oncoming traffic before you even think about overtaking.
Section 3. Reading the math ratios, the grammar of speed.
So we know the colors, and we know broken means we can potentially cross. But how do we know if it's actually a good idea? That's where the secret geometry of the road comes into play. Meet the standard lane line, or as it's known in Norway, the kjørefelt-linje. This is your standard happy driving baseline. It uses a breezy 1:3 ratio. That means the painted dash is short, one part, and the empty unpainted gap between the dashes is 3 times as long. When you see this light, airy pattern, it's signaling that the road authorities have deemed the sightlines adequate for normal maneuvers, including overtaking. It's basically the road's way of saying, looks good from up here. And this is where the design gets really smart. The road actually adapts to your speed while keeping that exact same 1:3 message. In a 50 km/h zone, the dash is 1 meter long and the gap is 3 meters. But hit an 80 km/h rural highway and those dashes physically stretch out to 3 meters long with massive 9-meter gaps. Why do they do this? Well, if they kept the short lines at high speeds, the lines would flicker past you like a strobe light and cause serious visual fatigue. So the physical length scales up at higher speeds to maintain a consistent, soothing visual rhythm as you accelerate. Honestly, it's an absolute masterpiece of subconscious design.
Section 4. The warning line alert, and what happens when the rhythm changes.
But what happens when that comfortable rhythm is disrupted? You really need to know when the road is telling you to back off. Enter the varsellinje, or warning line. The crucial point here is recognizing when that safe 1:3 ratio suddenly flips, tightening the rhythm to build tension. The varsellinje flips the math completely. It uses a 3:1 ratio. The painted dash is now 3 times longer than the tiny gap between them. Visually, the road suddenly looks dense and heavy with paint. When the road paints this dense 3:1 pattern, it's whispering a warning that visibility is dropping fast, usually due to a hidden dip, a sharp curve, or a blind crest ahead. Comparing these side by side really drives it home. The 1:3 lane line says go ahead, while the dense 3:1 warning line is practically screaming caution. This is vital. If you're currently overtaking a slower car and you suddenly notice the ratio flip to 3:1, you are running out of safe road. You've got to complete your maneuver and return to your lane immediately. The warning line is almost always the final buffer before you hit a solid, uncrossable line. Occasionally, on wider roads, you might even see a double warning line. It's exactly what it sounds like, two parallel 3-to-1 lines. This means visibility is heavily restricted for traffic coming from both directions. If you encounter a double warning line, treat it as a high-risk red zone. While technically not a solid wall, it is a massive warning from the authorities that you absolutely do not initiate an overtake here, under any circumstances. No way. Sometimes the authorities split the rules using combination lines, where a solid line runs right next to a broken line. The rule is simple. You only follow the line closest to your vehicle. And this brilliantly illustrates how engineers manage hills. Picture a steep hill. The uphill traffic gets the solid line because they're moving slower and are totally blind to what's over the crest. But the downhill traffic on the other side, they get the broken line. This cleverly gives downhill drivers the permission to pass because their higher vantage point allows them to see much further down the road.
Section 5, Special Lanes and Merging, Navigating the Complexities. Next, we need to decode how these lines manage specialized lanes and complex merging situations, especially when you transition from the rural highways into dense urban environments. In cities, you'll frequently see broken white lines that look a bit different. They're made of very short, exceptionally thick dashes. These specific lines are boundaries for specialized spaces, like bus lanes, known as the Kollektivfeld, or dedicated turning pockets. When you spot these short, thick dashes, it signifies the exact point you are legally permitted to cross into that bus lane or right turn pocket to prep for your maneuver. What about when lanes end entirely? In Norway, pay very close attention to when a broken line separating two lanes simply disappears into thin air. When that line vanishes, it triggers the zipper principle, or fletting. This means neither driver has formal right-of-way over the other. Instead, drivers must cooperate and take turns entering the single lane, exactly like the teeth of a zipper coming together. Understanding this is key to timing your merge smoothly without causing a bottleneck or a collision.
And let's not forget the edges of the road. Edge lines define the traveled way. You'll often see broken white lines on the far edges. Now, these breaks aren't for lane changes. They actually allow for better water drainage off the asphalt, and they indicate that the shoulder is available for emergency stops. But remember, a solid edge line strictly means the shoulder is not for driving, and you shouldn't even stop there unless it's an absolute life-or-death emergency. Finally, Section 6, Acing the Theory Test and Putting It All Together.
Let's synthesize this visual language. If you're taking the Statensvegvisen exam, these concepts are heavily tested. Let's do a quick practice scenario. If an exam image shows your car just starting to overtake, but the line beside you consists of long dashes and very short gaps, a 3-to-1 ratio, what do? Would you actually initiate an overtake here?
Well, the correct exam answer is always to wait, or if you've already peeked out, to abort the maneuver, because that 3-to-1 warning line signifies insufficient visibility. On the test, always choose the most conservative, safety-first option when warning lines appear.
To lock this in for the exam, memorize these non-negotiable rules. Yellow means two-way traffic, white means one-way. A 1-to-3 ratio is your green light for normal maneuvers, while a dense 3-to-1 ratio is a major warning to use caution. With combination lines, only ever look at the line directly on your side. And perhaps the biggest trap on the test, remember that even if a line is broken, you remain legally responsible if your overtake causes a dangerous situation. You still have to check those blind spots.
Which leads us to our final thought for this explainer. A broken line gives you the legal permission to cross, but does it ever absolve you of the personal responsibility to ensure the way is truly clear? Ultimately, mastering this visual language gives you incredible tools to predict hazards before they even happen. The engineers have given you the map, but it's entirely up to you to decide how safely you use that permission. Next time you're driving, see if you can read the rhythm of the road. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and drive safely out there.